In the morning, 6 a.m. Now I've written notes Saturday night, 6 a.m. I'm up and I'm looking at my notes. I'm opening my books and I'm writing things down. I always write an affirmation at the top. And I always say, great music, or something about the music, incredible service, large crowd with big energy, and here you are. Thank you for bringing into the solid world that which was and is my vision. The more we come together, the more we build energy. Now, we are blessed in the Northwest. I come from the Midwest, and in March, you begin to see crocuses and daffodils, and the little roses have little new leaves on them, and the world begins to change. I call it, wake up. The world is waking up, and we are sometimes just, oh, well, that always happens. Yes, it does. And aren't we grateful that there is a change in the universe? Physically, Mother Nature is constantly changing, reinventing itself. Where there were mountains, there are no more mountains. Where there was water, now there's more water. The world is constantly changing and reforming, and that is a model for us. I've always felt Mother Nature is a model for our lives. Are we willing to change? And I've always, this was sometimes in the fall, I tease about when the leaves begin to fall, do you think they argue who comes down first? Do you think there's a Academy Award for who was the prettiest color? I mean, I'm just always curious, because seems to be, at least from my viewpoint, that it just happens. It just happens. Do the big ones or the little ones or whatever. I have to admit, I watched some videos of gorillas. Anyone else watch those on Facebook? I am the only person in here on Facebook. Gorillas. The huge silverback gorillas with their teeny tiny babies. And those teeny tiny babies do not leave their embrace for almost 8 months. And the silverback gorillas are one of the gentlest of the species on the planet. Now, we look at that and it's scary. We don't know the backstory. So today I want to share some ideas from our season of peace. We are at the stage, our first week was about love and experiencing love in a new way and being unconditional, not measuring love, not having levels of love, just an open heart. So then last week we talked about respect, and that respect does not require agreement. We liked that, didn't we? It made us feel a little better. When we understand that respect is a level that is like this: equality. I respect you for being who you are, not who I want you to be. Now, I'd like to ask if that challenges anyone else. I respect you for who you are, not who I want you to be. Anyone else ever bump into that in your relationships, in your workplace? Yeah, there's a few of us. Now, we understood then as we went into our meditation that we could create a new room, a new experience. And Carolyn shared with me this morning how important that was to her, because her work has been challenging and things weren't going well. And she visualized, she said, nothing else has worked, might as well try this. She visualized a door and walking into a new room, and everything has changed. Now, you may think I just share ideas to share them. I'm sharing them as tools. When I walk into a room, I can create the room I desire. So here's another room analogy. Are you ready? So we're in a big room, and it's empty. Now, that takes a little visualizing today. It's empty. This room is empty. So I'm standing on the stage here, and there's a line, big long line, black line, with a circle attached to it. And what do I see? A black line with a big circle at the bottom attached to it. I see a 6, right? There's a black line, and there's a circle. I see a 6. Now, if you come from the back door and you walk, what do you see? A what? A 9. Now, how can it be a 6 and a 9? Because we came in from different perceptions and perspectives. Okay, here's my 6. There's your 9. How often in life do we think it's a 6 and someone else thinks it's a 9? Every day. Every day. And then we get into a little disagreement over it's a 6. No, it's a 9. Have you ever done that? Of course not. Yeah, Ginny's got wings. We'll just admit it.
And I see a little bee.
Okay, Jeff saw a bee. He's ahead of all of us. So when we look at understanding, we are looking at our perspective and our concepts of what is usually right or wrong. So I have a quote from Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, as he explains understanding. I vow to understand the whys, meaning behind the behavior for myself and others. I vow to understand the whys, meaning behind the behavior for myself and others. So this isn't about the other person. This isn't about right or wrong. This is about behavior. Does that just take a little energy off of it? It does for me. This is about somebody's behavior. Oh, really? It's about my behavior. It's my behavior. Now, this series is Be the Change You Want to See in the World. It's not about anybody else. Dang. Be the change I want to see in the world. I'm not expecting anyone else to change. Are you sure? I'm sure about that. Be the change you want to see in the world. I am willing. Am I willing? That's the first step. Am I willing? And am I willing to understand someone else's behavior and not necessarily call it good or bad? Is there anyone willing to do that? Okay, let's look at our behavior. Now remember, we're not judging anyone else's behavior, and we're not judging our behavior. We're just looking. We're just looking. We're taking a peek. When this happens, how do I react? When someone says this or someone does that, how do I react? Not about them, not about what they did, not about what they said. How do I react? And can I change that behavior? Or do I want to change that behavior? Am I solid in that behavior? Now, what is the behavior? Am I angry? Am I afraid? Am I disappointed? Am I grieving? What is the energy that I bring that shows up as my behavior? Because most of the time we don't even identify our feelings with our behavior. Would you agree? I'm going to say it again. We don't always recognize our feelings that influence our behavior. It's like taking apart a puzzle or a paragraph. Can I take this apart and see where that behavior influenced my life? Did I grow up with someone with that behavior? Yes, probably. Did I learn that behavior? Is that behavior a protection? What is that behavior that I'm willing to look at the why? Now, this is Mahatma Gandhi like 100 years ago saying this. Am I willing to, more or less, my word would be, look within at the why of my behavior? Is this behavior I've done over and over? Is this behavior that is my protection? Anyone feel like you have to have a screen of protection around you? Anyone ever felt that way? Yeah. Oh, there's a few. Depends on the environment. However, when we understand that it's our behavior in the situation that we can change, we can change that behavior. Now, when we understand that it is in our hands, in our hearts, and in our minds to change that behavior, we go, oh, well, okay, that's really interesting. That's one of my favorite words. Interesting. It's my no commitment word. Oh, that's interesting. That's saying, I don't really agree with you, but okay. Yeah, you want to say that, okay. Now, our world, and this is just my interpretation, our world is built on judgment. That's good and that's bad. And it's actually personal preferences. I like this kind of pretzel, you like that kind of pretzel. I like that kind of color, you like that. I like blue pants, you might not like blue pants. So those are personal preferences. Those aren't right and wrong. Now, when we go beyond clothing, and we go beyond food, and then we go beyond da-da-da and da-da-da, it's still all personal preference, because remember, we see a 6 or a 9 or a B, and none of it's right or wrong. So just, if we could chew on that, I like to use that simile, if we can chew on that through the next week, looking at the whys of my behavior. If I can isolate the whys of my behavior, I can begin to take it apart. And I can choose if I want to change or not. Change is always a choice. We can resist. We can say, oh, I'm right. Or we can say, oh, maybe I could change this in my behavior. So understanding is not about agreeing. Remember, we started this series, probably say it every Sunday, Rumi's well-known saying, beyond wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Because what someone thinks is right and wrong can be complete opposites, but still work for them. It's challenging, isn't it? It's challenging. In school, we were taught that's the right answer, that's the wrong answer, that's the right behavior, that's the wrong behavior. And yet we live in a world today where we can see everywhere across the globe. We can hear music. We can see speakers. We can almost taste the food that we can see online. Would you agree? And so we can taste things that we might have went, oh, what? And then if we actually tasted it, we might go, oh, That's good. That's good. So our reaction, say that with me. Reaction. My reaction is what creates the energy in me. Or the opposite, the energy in me creates my reaction. Now, Mahatma Gandhi had to practice ways of doing this. So this is entering a new room, which is looking at things differently. So you may remember historically that the British put a huge tax on fabric. And people in India could not afford fabric. They had no way, at least at that time, of growing anything that they could actually, they had no mills, they had no process for that. So people, their clothes were wearing out, there was no way to get fabric. So Mahatma Gandhi, in his meditation or whatever, decided we could spin our own fabric. Mahatma Gandhi taught himself how to spin. He taught everyone he knew how to spin. And it went all over the country to the point that the British stopped the tax. Arun Gandhi, the grandson, we have his picture up here. That was one of the first things he said from the time he was a little boy. Everyone learned to spin. And they could take their spinning wheel anywhere with them, so if we had a spare moment, we could sit down and spin. But they did not do it with an attitude of aggression. They did not do it with an attitude of, we'll show you. They did it with an attitude of, we can do this for ourselves. Thank you very much. Now, Mahatma Gandhi in all these stories shares that, Arun shares about his grandfather, that he was one of the most likable people you would ever meet, Mahatma Gandhi. He had a great sense of humor. He loved people. He loved the British. Every time they came and met with him, there were hugs. How are your grandchildren? His wife would make cookies. I mean, this was not a man who had his hand on a hip or on a high horse. He was being challenged by, at least at that time, the biggest power in the world, and he was spinning fabric. And they were sitting at his table. He wasn't sitting at their table. Now, you may also remember they put a tax or a tariff on salt. They thought this is going to wipe them out because Indians love salty food and spicy food. So they thought this will get them. This will get them. They thought they'll come to their knees over salt. So somehow Mahatma Gandhi in his dreams or whatever, well, there's salt in the ocean, in the sea. Sea salt. So we're going to walk and get some salt. So he created the Salt March. You may have heard of that. I hope so. So he started out, he let everyone in the ashram know and they didn't have email or anything to get it out, but just people knew what was happening. And there were about 100 people that started with him. Now, it was over 100 miles to get to the beach and the ocean. So every day there were more people and more. There were thousands and thousands of people. When they finally get to the ocean, there was as far as the eye can see. There's people standing, picking up salt from the sea. Now at that point, the British said, "Well," and there was an agreement, sort of. But what I want us to learn from this is there's always a different way. We don't have to attack someone. We don't have to belittle someone. We don't have to be angry with someone. There's always a different way. We don't have to agree, but we can understand. Are you with me? Okay. So Mahatma Gandhi always used this story about apples and oranges. If you want oranges, you don't plant apples. What? One of the greatest wisdoms I've ever heard, right? If you want oranges, you don't plant apples. Apple. Well, if you want to work together, you don't plant anger. If you want to find common ground, you don't plant judgment. If you want to find unity in a community, you plant togetherness. It is our behavior that we are changing here. Are we willing? So my final story is a true story from my life. Many of you know Paul and I have been married 37 years, and when we were young and 40 is when we met and put our lives together. I moved down from Bremerton, Washington to Tigard, where he was living. We both had teenagers. Maybe not the best decision. And he welcomed me, and I brought my frou-frou furniture and my glass tabletop and my mauve pink dining room chairs, and out went the orangey fur things. He was wonderful. Now, as we were creating our bedroom upstairs, I noticed there were guns on the wall. Now, Paul is from a ranch in Montana. I always brag that it was on both sides of the highway. It was so big. Sheep, 1,000 sheep, huge ranch. And I'm from St. Louis and the suburbs and the symphony. What can I say? So here we are, and I go to sleep looking at the guns hanging on the wall, and I wake up. And I have this behavior that says, that's wrong. That's wrong. You should not have guns. Now, I come from a pacifist belief system, and every day there are those guns. Now, I did talk to him. You would believe that, right? I didn't let that pass. I did say, we have teenagers in this house, and we both worked, and there were times when there'd be 10 boys, football players, and those guns were, those were my dad's. He gave them to me to protect myself. At 7, he had a gun. He was alone in the mountains with hundreds of sheep. Well, but we're here now, and those boys come here. And I even cut out newspaper articles. I was sure I was right. Guns didn't come down. Now, I won't say that I got a little, yeah, I was so sure I was right. I raised my voice. Can you believe it? Finally, they didn't come down. So one day I'm alone in the bedroom, everyone's out of the house, and I started blessing those guns. And I started saying to myself, he is open to how I am seeing things. Can I be open to the guns on the wall? Now, I can't tell you how big this was for me. To change my behavior from resistance to non-resistance. And I stood there and prayed and walked out on our little deck for about an hour. And eventually I went, who am I to say? They were from his father, they protected him, and he values them. You see, he walked in and saw a 9, I walked in and saw a 6. And someone else saw a B. And so I just let it go. I just had to let it go. Am I going to let this end this relationship? Because I was that into it. And I didn't say anything. We were talking about it driving down here. He remembers I didn't say anything. About 2 weeks later, I'm on the phone with a friend. It's 8 o'clock at night. He comes up with a big tub of paint, a roller, and tape, and starts taking down the drapes. I'm like, what are you doing? Well, we've been talking about painting this for quite a while. I just decided to do it tonight. And then he went over and took down the guns. And then never went up again. Because what happened? My resistance went away. And my supporting him was bigger than my resistance. Now, I'm not sure if you have this kind of situation. I don't think you have guns hanging on the wall, but you could. I don't know. But what is it in your life that your behavior is making your relationships more difficult? What is it in your life that you are standing on so firmly that it's harming you and your relationships? Or the way you look at the world? Are you willing to understand without agreeing? I still don't agree about guns on the wall. However, we've lived in 3 houses and they haven't been on the wall again. What's important is our relationship, our beliefs, or our behavior. So you have an affirmation card today. It says week 4 on one side. That's not our affirmation. I let go of my attachment to outcomes. I find that I never win.
Until I become willing to do without the trophy.
When I am non-resistant,
My good runs to meet me.
I invite you to close your eyes and pretend that the lights go down. Just take a deep breath. I am willing. I am willing. Say it with me. I am willing to be the change that I want to see in the world. I am willing. Now I invite you to close your eyes if that makes you feel comfortable. Put your hand on your heart or open your palms as a receptive way of receiving the energy that is filling this room right now. There is healing in this room. There is love and acceptance and understanding. I now see. I now remember about that behavior. I'm ready to release. I am willing to plant orange seeds and reap orange seeds. I am willing to shift the energy in my behavior day by day. And I am willing to look beyond my behavior and the behavior of others and look for that deeper connection. great gratitude. Great gratitude for the wisdom and the willingness to move an inch or two or a foot in my behavior of whatever it is that is standing in my way of understanding. Deep breath and exhale. And in the next day and weeks, I enter a new room, a new way of being, a new consciousness. I am shifting and non-resistant to change. And so it is. And so it is.